So like I said earlier, this is the long-awaited sequel to the 1988, let me get that right,
Yeah, yeah.
Beetlejuice, which was originally directed by Tim Burton and starred a very young Winona Ryder, one of her early breakout roles, as well as Catherine O'Hara, who are all back in this new rendition. We find the Deetz family um, succumbing to tragedy at the beginning of the film. The grandfather, originally played by Jeffrey Jones, who's not in this film because of some legal troubles we're not going to get into on the show. Um, his character has passed away. This brings the family together and back to the town of Winter Haven. We find the family a little dysfunctional. Lydia Deetz, played by Winona Ryder, is kind of a ghostly medium. She has a TV show and is an internet personality. That's how she pays the bills. She kind of can convene with the dead. She has this very kind of vulturous husband or romantic interest, played by Justin Theroux, who's clearly in it for the money. She is estranged from her daughter Astrid, played by Jenna Ortega, really bringing in that Gen Z crowd. They don't get along. They're kind of in that teenage daughter mother dynamic, not getting along, very dysfunctional. And of course, Catherine O'Hara is the mother, is a delight. There's a lot going on plot wise, so I'm not going to try to get into it too much. I just want to kind of set up our dynamic. In the meantime, we also have the Afterlife, things going on there, where Beetlejuice himself, played of course by Michael Keaton, is just kind of there. But we see the revival of his long dead wife, played by Monica Bellucci, in this great Bride of Frankenstein kind of getup. And we also have some special guests like Willem Dafoe as an actor turned cop turned actor, who's on the case to try to solve all these things. There is a lot going on. There's a lot of plot lines, but this movie's all about vibes and joke. It's a joke a minute kind of thing. There's lots of laughs. There's a lot. It's highly entertaining. I definitely enjoyed it more than I thought I would, because I did not like the original. I watched it about a few months ago, very recently, and then thought, I guess it's a product of its time. But I actually really enjoyed this and I'm excited to get into it. Zach, what'd you think?
So I was not warm going into Beetlejuice. I was skeptical. I figured, man, it's been over a decade since I've seen Tim Burton put out anything that really impressed me. I know Wednesday got a lot of good vibes, but I don't know. I just figured it was a mini series. Like, I was curious to see what he was going to do on the big screen, and I'm very pleased to report I think this is Tim Burton's best movie in over a decade, for sure. Potentially 2 decades. Like, it is such a welcome return to form for the wild-haired director who just has even wilder ideas. Huge visuals, whack lighting, way too many characters. Beetlejuice is good. Like, fun settings, pretty good script. Michael Keaton's back. I mean, you get everybody back for it. Like, I can't believe I liked it as much as I did. I might potentially like it. Probably don't like it more than the first one. I think the first one's got some good stuff going on in it, but really looking forward to talking about this, because I every once in a while a movie comes along and surprises you on this podcast. And let me tell you, Beetlejuice is the movie of the month for me. Like, I did not think this was going to be as good as it was. I feel like I've heard mixed reviews from people. I'm excited to clear the air and explain to you all why this is a good movie. So where do you want to jump in and talk about it, Andy?
Well, let's talk about our big cast. So I was afraid this movie might just be a nostalgia fest, and it wasn't. It really wasn't. It really tries hard at being its own thing, not being too of the time either. It also doesn't have a bunch of like Gen Z jokes, or there's like one joke about influencers, but it's really kind of an original comedy about this dysfunctional family, about the afterlife. It's a dark comedy, but Michael Keaton's great. He still has the juice, for lack of
Yeah.
a better term. He really does. And Catherine O'Hara, same character. I mean, she's so good in everything. Jenna Ortega isn't in this as much as I thought she might be, but she's fine. Winona Ryder just picking up the role like she never left it, and some really, again, funny additions. Willem Dafoe's Wolf Jackson steals the scene every time. Monica Bellucci, she's interesting. Her character's not really in it. Again, there's so many plot lines interweaving and so many people. But the makeup and like the sets are so good that you go with it. Again, the vibes are good, and it's not too long. It's like 100 minutes.
Yeah, O'Hara steals every scene she's in, which is hilarious. I love that Justin Theroux's kind of doting husband slash talent manager Rory literally attacks people with therapy speak, which is incredible. And I haven't seen a character doing that in a minute on screen. Like, actually really refreshing and a very real problem. And I like that Lydia Deetz is kind of a stand-in for what feels like Burton's larger work, right? Like, she's somebody who had all these big visions and big dreams and was able to see these ghosts in her past, like able to see these huge things from the afterlife. And since then, she's monetized it and dumbed it down and gone to TV and just become kind of this like shell of what she used to be. And she has to realize over the course of the movie that like really she should be looking to like go back to those big things instead of like being haunted by them. There's this big line at the end that I think is really fitting. And that comes into Burton's work here. Like, not only between the practical effects and general pacing, but the overall tone of this movie is delightful. I love the way Burton looks at the afterlife. Like, I feel like so often death is seen as A, frightening, or B, something we shouldn't be presenting to children, or C, maybe kind of peaceful, right? Like the Pixar afterlife. Take me to like Coco, like the land of the dead, or even like Soul, right? Like these kind of luminous beings are we. And Tim Burton's afterlife, meanwhile, is like horribly grisly and full of body horror and wildly messy and sometimes scary, but also like fun. And it makes light of it, and it presents death as kind of another life past life, the afterlife, another journey, another thing. Like, and it makes it easy. Characters die in Beetlejuice, and it doesn't hurt the film at all. Like, it kind of works better. You don't feel as much sorrow for them as like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. We're on to our next thing. And like, I think that's a good lesson for kids. Like, I think the world Tim Burton presents is a good alternate view of what we're normally presented with. And like, nobody does it quite like him. It's very refreshing to see him returning to this and doing it well and sticking the landing. It's really nice.
Yeah, like the characters work so well. Just like the vibes of everything. Like, it's genuinely so funny. Like, my whole audience was cracking up. I was cracking up. And there's it's a gag a minute, visual gags, other kinds of jokes. And it's just a good time. And that this, I think, is a good time to get into the plot. The plots are a little confusing, so I'll try to just outline the premise of a lot of things. So again, the grandfather character dies. This brings everyone back to the original house in town from the original Beetlejuice. But we have Winona Ryder and her love interest, who's clearly trying to just be on her coattails to wealth. Delia Deetz, Catherine O'Hara's character, is just kind of her version of mourning, is creating weird art, which is really funny. We have Jenna Ortega not only being estranged from her mom, but also starting this new school. She meets a boy, so there's a little bit of that teenage angst going on. Again, we have Monica Bellucci's character coming after Beetlejuice. We have William Dafoe, the detective, trying to find Monica Bellucci's character. It's just like, are you keeping up with all this? And I still don't think that's all of them. And somehow this works. And in a lot of movies, it would just fall apart. And in this, it kind of does, but you don't care because it's just so fun the entire time.
Yeah, it doesn't waste any time in the runtime. Like, I do think it has probably one or two too many plot lines. You could easily cut 2 or 3 of these characters and the film would still work fine. But with so many, you don't get enough time for you to get bored anywhere. And combine that with like zany camera angles and whack lighting and the insane presentation of the underworld in combination with an overworld that is not all entirely normal. Like, I do love the look of this little town they shoot in. Whoever decided to cover the OG Beetlejuice house in this like black mourning shroud is genius. Like, it's such a cool look. It gives the whole film this like unique feeling all its own. Like, all of that gives you so much visually to chew on that you don't have time to get bored anywhere. And before you know it, you're in your third act and then you're rolling towards credits. Obviously, the movie still has to hit a lot of like nostalgia set pieces, which Beetlejuice is full of, right? You got to see the sandworm that's inspired by Dune, which is a weird watch now, having seen Dune 1 and 2, right? You got to get like some kind of, you got to get Deo, the song, in there, right? And you got to have probably some kind of scene where a bunch of people are possessed and singing. You got to have the guys with the shrunken heads. All of these things need to make an appearance in Beetlejuice. The secret, I think, is peppering all of these things in without making them ham-fisted callbacks and making them feel like a natural extension of the universe. Burton manages to do this. Like, it doesn't feel like it overstays its welcome. It feels fresh. It feels new. And if anything, because so much of it is practical, it genuinely feels like a fresh experience. So much of this from another director would have been CGI junk. It would have been blurry effects in a half-lit room that you can't really see, and your brain would tell you, yeah, I guess that character just transformed from a bat into a person. But Burton, meanwhile, is like, no, we're going to do some crazy moves with a whip pan, and we're going to like throw up some lights and some smoke, and they're going to turn into a thing. And it makes it feel different, and it makes it feel fun, and it makes it feel new, even though it is uniquely nostalgic. I'm really impressed. It was really a delight watching a lot of this stuff pop up on screen, and it's just like, it's a gag a minute, it's a bit a minute, it's an effect a minute. Like, I can't believe how fast they keep coming at you.
Yeah, and I think what you were talking about, the sets and things like costumes and makeup, make it work so well, because it's largely practical. There's some digital effects here and there, but it's not, they could have easily gone for some big third act thing in the underworld where there's all these demons and whatever else flying around, but they keep it very grounded. And I think it's the kind of thing that will have staying power, that will have rewatchability. Because when I think of something like Deadpool and Wolverine, like, it was fine and it was funny, but it's very much of the moment, and that movie's not going to really be relevant in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Whereas, like, this is one of these things that you can probably just watch every Halloween, till Kingdom Come.
Yeah, that's exactly what this feels like. Potentially like a new holiday staple. It reminds me a lot of Violent Night, David Harbour Santa movie that came out a couple years ago. We walked out of the theater for that. I thought I could see myself watching this every December. Same with Beetlejuice. This feels like an October watch. Like, you could easily throw this on the watch list for movies you want to watch in October. You could throw this on at a party and keep it running in the background, like, visually distinct. A lot of characters you like. Again, Catherine O'Hara literally steals every scene she's in. It's a great time. Like, I can't believe I'm saying it's a great time. And I tell you, man, I really did think Burton might be washed. I really thought after his Disney run, after bringing in the renaissance of Disney live action with his Alice in Wonderland films, and then he did Dumbo, which everybody said was a big miss. Like, I figured he was out. He wasn't doing this anymore. He'd gone the way of, like, Kevin Smith, right? He will not return to the View Askew universe. It is what it is. And not only does he seem to be back, he may be back with a vengeance. If he produces another film like this next, I think we may be looking at almost like a George Miller style renaissance, right? Returning
Burton
to what made you great. Dude, bring it on. There's way too many people like Tim Burton. He pulls high with millennials, I'm told. That's what I've heard. So I think Burton, he might have something here. And again, I can't believe Keaton can keep it up at like how old is he? 76? It's a lot of voice work. Admittedly, it's not as much physical in this film, but he's only in 17 minutes of the movie. They explicitly kept him cut back, just like in the first film, because they wanted him to be almost like a Hannibal Lecter presence in the film. It can't be Beetlejuice for 110 minutes. It's got to be other characters. He's just there. He's an accessory to this whole thing. I'm really stunned at how well it works. It's not a perfect film. It may not make the top 10 list, but man, Beetlejuice is a fun ride. So with that, any other thoughts or recommendations?
I wanted to mention the score and needle drops in this are really good. Again, we get the classic Beetlejuice theme, which is a big part of that first movie, and in this, it'll put a smile on your face when you see it. But then the pop tunes that are chosen are really solid. It's the perfect cue of classic, like, 70s, 80s tunes that are used in here. Really good soundtrack that ties into the movie really well, and just, again, helps it work.
Yeah. I was actually really pleased to hear that, like, Danny Elfman score in the front with like a million instruments all going at once. Blah, 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 blah. Like, it's good stuff. Yeah, Danny Elfman's great. The miniatures are great, and it uniquely doesn't overstay its welcome. This movie easily could have been 2 hours, 10 minutes, like, in the wrong hands. And like, it ends up being like a tight hundy, doesn't have too many nostalgia throwbacks, doesn't go out of its way to like step over here and say, look, parents, remember when you saw this when you were kids? Like, it's really nice. Not too many member berries. Genuinely seems to be focused on just telling an interesting story with the elements you've got here. And like, that's the best you can hope for a nostalgia sequel. So with that, Andy, would you recommend Beetlejuice?
Yeah, absolutely would. This was a wonderful surprise. I had a lot of fun. There's jokes, there's vibes, there's a lot of fun characters. There's a few too many plot lines that going on at once, but like you don't even care just because everything that's on screen is just so funny. You're laughing the whole time. It's got a little bit of nostalgia bits, but it doesn't do it too heavily, and it also isn't trying to be too contemporary either. I think it's a surprisingly a big hit. Highly recommend.
Yeah, same. I think Beetlejuice rocks. I think it's Tim Burton's best movie in over a decade. I know I keep saying that, but I mean it. You can look him up on IMDb. Like it's pretty slim, man. Like this is a genuine return to form for the director. I can't wait to see what he does next. I hope he does more work like this. Please do not go do mainstream junk. Please do not just take a check and go do whatever somebody tells you. Like, go do another weird movie again, please. Like, he is so good at doing weird movies. Beetlejuice is a weird one for sure. And with that, we should move into our next segment of the episode. Andy, what do we typically call this one?
It's time for the trailer park.